can feel it in my bones.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Mark Hughes, the Executive Director of the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance, and you've caught me again on Juxtaposition. Issues affecting black folks affecting change. This episode, this whole business about the Juneteenth syndrome, I'm really glad to be with you on this episode. The Juneteenth syndrome, freedom celebrated, freedom denied. So we've got a robust program for you. We got, we just got some conversation that we're going to be having, and we'll also tell you a little bit more about some things that are happening across Burlington. Juneteenth is almost here across America. There will be celebrations, flags will be raised, speeches will be given, politicians will issue proclamations, corporations will post carefully crafted messages on social media. Universities are going to send out all kinds of emails. Nonprofits are going to hold panels, and millions of Americans they're going to congratulate themselves on how far this nation has come. But tonight, what I'm going to talk to you about is something I call Juneteenth syndrome. Juneteenth syndrome. Juneteenth syndrome is what happens when a society celebrates black freedom while simultaneously dismantling the protections that make black freedom even possible. So tonight, I'm joined by my favorite guest. And yeah, tonight who I have for you is I have Christine Longmore Hughes, who's here with me today. Darling, thank you for joining.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's so good to have you on. Juneteenth. I know we got Juneteenth coming up. I know you usually do things over at the Richard Kim Center. Oh, by the way, Christine is the director of the Richard Kim Center. I don't know if I said that or not when I was so excited I forgot to.
No, you just said I was your favorite person.
I was just, well, I mean.
It's okay either way.
Being a director of the Richard Kim Center is kind of important, so I just wanted to say that. So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you. I know it's really hard for those who are watching. It's hard to get Christine to come out and be a part of this because she's like, you got this, go. So yeah, definitely want to talk a little bit more about what's been popping over there, what's going on at the Richard Kim Center lately, and what's planned. We'll come back to Juneteenth in a minute, but I just want to get you properly deposed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things, well, thank you, first of all, for having me here and for all your amazing work.
You're very welcome.
So one of the things we're really excited about that we just completed was our urban gardening project, or I should say we launched it.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting.
Yeah,
and
talk
actually,
about that for a second.
In some ways kind of related to this topic too. We had a small grant through VHCB to do some urban gardening. So we got some raised beds that are installed right outside the Richard Kemp Center. We have things like cucumbers and tomatoes and some herbs and some collard greens. Yeah, so we're really excited about that. And we're also preparing for a Juneteenth block party.
Juneteenth block party?
Yeah, that'll be happening on Friday, June 19th. So that's exciting. In the past, we've done like open houses and stuff, but this year we decided to do a block party. So that should be fun. Yeah,
Kevin, show him that flyer, Kevin, that Juneteenth block party. Yeah, that's a big deal. Have you done Juneteenth block parties before?
We've done open houses more, but we've had block parties at other times during the year. We've had a back in school block party pretty consistently over the past maybe 4 years. As kids are settling back into school, that's always really fun. It's a little bit of a gamble because it usually is in October and you never know what the weather's going to do.
Exactly.
But we have really been blessed with beautiful, like crisp, sunny fall days every year that we've done it. So that's really fortunate.
You know what I like to talk about too when we discuss what's going on at the Richard Kim Center is the annual Sankofa trip. And just I know that How many years did we go down to the National Museum of African American History?
Yeah, that is major. That's probably one of our biggest undertakings, and we've done that 3 years in a row.
3 years.
Yep. This year we decided to take a year off, but we are planning on revisiting that next year. It's a pretty heavy undertaking, both with the logistics and the fundraising. Probably one of our biggest fundraising lifts of anything that we do, and it's also been really generously supported in the community, so people get really excited about that. And it's just a really important opportunity for youth here and their families to experience that museum and the history that is in there. So we're looking forward to returning to that, and I think we have some plans to potentially collaborate with Corey Whitfield at Burlington High School.
Corey.
Yeah, so we might have some other folks to help us plan that and get that together. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the work.
One other thing, if I could, that's just on my mind, just one other thing, because it's important, for anyone that's watching. We do have a summer activities and free lunch program that will be starting right that following week after the Juneteenth block party. It's usually sort of a small program, but we're still enrolling youth. We have a couple so far. One of the things that we'll be doing is coming here. The youth really have a good time here and have an opportunity to learn about this this organization and the tools and the resources that are here. So that's another thing that I just really just want to take the opportunity to plug.
You're working with a lot of community members on stuff like that, right? So you probably just do a pitch out to those folks too, for folks who are interested in being a part of that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So for folks who are out there, if you want to be a part of what she's, what they're doing down there with that, I mean, I think it's great. I walk in there sometimes and I'm never, I'm never not surprised. I'm like, wow, what is going on in here? And I get just kind of sucked in. For those who are just joining us tonight, yeah, we're here to talk about the Juneteenth syndrome. The Juneteenth syndrome. The Juneteenth syndrome is what happens when society celebrates Black freedom while simultaneously dismantling the protections that make Black freedom possible. And we act out in all kinds of ways with how we respond to this business of Juneteenth, and just seeing the history of Juneteenth and understanding, that we are, a nation that's just immersed in the legacy of slavery, and just understanding how all of that goes together, and just trying to unlearn a lot of fake history. It's important that we understand that right now, and I'm just going to cut to the chase, that what's happening right now is we're getting ready to honor emancipation. But what's going on is it's in the climate of a weakening democracy. Very, very important. This is what happens. This Juneteenth syndrome when institutions proclaim equity while retreating from the equity work. This is what happens when America remembers freedom, but fails it refuses responsibility. And if we're honest tonight, if we're really honest tonight, that's exactly where we are today as a nation. Welcome to the Juneteenth syndrome. We're living through one of the most consequential political moments of our lifetimes. A moment when voting rights are under attack, a moment when civil rights protections are being weakened, a moment when executive power is expanding, a moment when courts are rewriting decades of settled law, a moment when fear is becoming a governing principle, and yet many people continue acting as though normal politics, they're still normal. So, I mean, we're seeing that play out a lot, even in our own communities. I see people every day, and it's like every now and then I'm in a conversation with somebody, and we'll be talking about something, and it doesn't make any difference what the conversation is. And every now and then I will just say, can I call a timeout? And they'll be like, what? And I'm like, I just want to frame this conversation for a moment, because I just want to just acknowledge right now, and just for everybody just to stop and take a deep breath and just to understand that technically we are at a time in history, and we are in a space, in a place where none of us have ever been in our entire lives. That's the gravity and the context of this particular discussion. Then I'll say something like resume, and we'll start the conversation again. What have your experiences been?
I think as I listen to you say all of that, one of the things that comes to mind, one of the words that you use is fear. And I think that when I reflect on history and some of what we understand was actually happening back then during, so-called emancipation, is that there were actually people that were afraid to leave the plantation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, for us living in this day, we look back at something like that and think, oh God, like how could that even be? How could you not want to be like getting away or getting out or whatever?
Right.
But I think fear is a very powerful and unfortunate thing. And I think that both individually and collectively, when you dig down to the root of a lot of the things that you see happening both politically and in our communities, and just sort of the response to what is happening and what you just described, I think fear is part of what we're seeing. I think, apathy is a thing. It's an unfortunate thing. And I think that when I think of that term that I feel like maybe you and I made up, the Juneteenth syndrome.
I think you made it up, actually.
I really think about information.
Yeah.
And I think about the power of information. And I think about the fact that, Black people who, were slaves at the time lived in places where somebody else was in control of everything.
Right.
In control of their movement, in control of when they worshiped, in control of what they ate, in control, obviously, of their physical movement. And so I think that there are pieces that are vestiges, if you will, of that still live with us today, unfortunately.
The legacy of slavery.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's not, it takes more than just the folks that are in control and have the political or economic power to oppress people.
Right.
Because the other part of the equation are the people that are being oppressed.
Yeah. Will we be oppressed?
Right. And how do you respond to that? And first of all, the first thing that has to happen is you have to clearly understand that that's happening.
Right.
And you have to clearly understand how it's happening.
Exactly.
I mean, sometimes I have conversations with people and say, did you know that we just abolished slavery in Vermont? And most people are going to kind of scratch their head because they don't have the information that chattel slavery was abolished, but there was an exception clause.
Right.
And they don't have the information to understand that that exception clauses in the Constitution, both in our state and federally, are sort of the secret sauce of the prison industrial complex.
Sort of are.
And so sometimes when I'm telling people that, and I can see that they are not aware of that, it hurts my heart.
Yeah.
I'm not the smartest person in the world.
Right.
But to have that information and to understand that, well, I mean, the thing is you don't have to be a genius.
Right.
You just, because everybody basically understands what the Constitution is, and I would think understands that our laws rest on the Constitution, and it doesn't take a lot to understand that we were kind of duped.
Kind of duped.
And what is happening right now with our the rate that we imprison people in this country, and the very, very long list of crimes or so-called crimes has its roots in slavery.
Absolutely.
And I think as you look at the rate that we incarcerate people compared to other countries, I think the only one that's ahead of us might be like South Africa or something.
I don't even know that there is one ahead of us.
Right, we might be taking the lead at this point, but it is a travesty and it's a crime against humanity.
Let's talk about that thing, that fear thing, because it's playing out. My mother used to tell me, son, don't make decisions out of fear, don't make decisions out of guilt. And I think, as I reflect on that and I think about, like George Floyd time frame, where we were in the middle of a pandemic, and it just laid bare the disparities that existed, not just nationally, but globally. And there's this, everybody's raising the Black Lives Matter flag. As opposed to now, those are precisely the reasons why I'm thinking that many people did make those decisions. I think a lot of decisions back in 2000, 2001, and so forth were made out of guilt, and I think a lot of decisions today are being made out of fear.
Right.
I know that this just kind of going back to this whole business about, what does Juneteenth mean rather. I think one of the things that I'd like to put out there is that what we know is that allegedly in Galveston, Texas, there were thousands of formerly enslaved during that time who didn't know that they were free.
Information.
And I'm stressing allegedly because we don't know, because there are so many versions of his story. But nonetheless, it is the premise upon which this whole business about Juneteenth is framed. What's not talked about is the Emancipation Proclamation's scope, because it did not free, the Emancipation Proclamation did not free everyone, and it wasn't until the 13th Amendment that everyone was finally free, except for the punishment of a duly convicted crime, as you just said. So just having that knowledge alone is kind of important to contextualize what it means to talk about it or engage in this business of Juneteenth. But there's more, because I think, even now, because what this means is understanding the constructs of the weapons that are being used against us. So understanding their existence. Right now, do people know, do we know that we're at a point where rights are being weakened, where protections are being removed, where at this point in time, where are folks aware that this, say for example, the implications of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and what that actually means, or the fact that the entire civil rights, the federal apparatus, the entire apparatus for civil rights has been completely dismantled, upended, or weaponized. Are we, the question is are we framing what it is that we're looking at today based upon what is really actually playing out? I just saw over the last couple of days where administrative rules were being changed at the federal level that have very, very far-reaching implications for racial justice and equal rights.
Right. I mean, in the current administration, in order to do all of that, has a very clear understanding of the power of information, and is using it and reforming it to weaponize it against people. So they're certainly doing their homework.
No doubt. And here's the thing: is the whole thing about Juneteenth. One of the things that I was thinking about, with the work that we've been doing, when we went in and did the slavery abolition back in I think it was 2019 when that work started, and we ended up getting it to the ballot in 2022. Again, one of the things that's important for us to understand is once slavery was allegedly abolished, or during the Reconstruction period, it was the 13th Amendment, yes, that abolished slavery, except for that exception clause. But it was also the 14th Amendment, which provided the due process and the equal protection and the birthright citizenship. Isn't all this stuff starting to sound a little familiar? I mean, when you start to think about what's going on federally right now. And then the 15th Amendment was voting rights. So those were the three Reconstruction amendments that we relied upon as a nation to course correct us, to put us on track for being a democracy. Because before that, there was no hope of us being a democracy because we were a slave nation.
Right.
Now, obviously, it would take us until 1954 or in the early 60s to late 60s before we moved the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and then, of course, the Housing Rights Act of 1968. And the reason why I'm laying all this out, it's a little bit of an education for the folks who are watching, but it's also, it is like eerily familiar. Because if you think about what's playing out right now, again, we're talking about this whole business of, the Juneteenth syndrome. The question is on the Juneteenth syndrome, the question ought to always be, well, did you know?
Yeah, did you know?
And I think that this is so vitally important because the vast majority of what I just put out there, what we're finding is just a lot of people just don't know. We don't get Reconstruction history in our schools.
Right.
Corey's doing a good job of doing some of that.
He's doing a fantastic job. And I think one of the things that I'm really proud of at the Richard Kemp Center is that if you walk in there, right as you're walking in our sort of makeshift lobby, there's a bulletin board and it will be a history fact of the day, some kind of Black history. And it's interesting as I do that and try to keep it up to date. There are even times where I'm learning something. I mean, I consider myself somebody that has a fairly good grasp of history, but sometimes I'm even discovering things in that process that I didn't know. So there's lots of information out there for people to research and understand. It also makes me think of my father, Richard Kemp, who we named the center after and actually had a show here too. And he used to make sure, he spent a lot of time getting people registered to vote. Right. And so a lot of times, like even in our family, or if somebody turned 18, he would be there right away saying, are you registered to vote? And like making sure that they were registered to vote. And one of the things, I remember having conversations with him about what it actually took and what the sacrifices were and what people did before us so that we would have the rights that we have now. And that's, that's really important, not just to pay respect to them, but to really understand that we have a responsibility to, to do what we have to do and register to vote and be aware of what's going on around us.
And we're headed towards close, but I'm thinking about just the massive responsibility that that folks, even like during like the 1870s, for example, you got formerly enslaved folks, and these are super oppressive times, especially in the late 1870s when the federal forces were pulled out of the South and Reconstruction was in the midst of collapsing, and we were moving towards Plessy versus Ferguson towards the close of the century. And even after that time and through the, we're going to call it the Gilded period, but I call it, I think it's Nicole Hannah-Jones calls it the nadir, the first nadir, which was just a horrible time for all of us, for the formerly enslaved. But we know that there are so many Black and brown folks who came before us that they were in the struggle. They were in their communities. They were organizing, they were coming together, they were feeding each other, they were learning together, they were growing together, they were healing together, and they were making a difference in their communities, and they weren't waiting for the cavalry to come in. How was that time any way similar to what we're experiencing now?
Yeah, necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, and it makes me think about things like mutual aid. And it's something that I was reading about recently and knew about already, that, people were coming together to take care of each other because they weren't waiting for somebody else to do it because they knew that they wouldn't. Not only were they coming together to take care of each other just for, basic needs or whatever, but also coming together and creating communities and creating businesses.
Absolutely.
So that they could sustain their own lives and in some cases have sustainable economies, like in Oklahoma. So unfortunately that had a terrible end, but the concept and the idea of being able to come together, which also requires information, And to be able to
Hello.
right, right,
Right.
to be able to do that, I just think that there's so much that we can learn from our own history, but you have to know it and
What's
you
your
have to
hope?
find it.
What's your hope for this time, this year? This is a tough time. We've never had.
I know.
We have never had a Juneteenth like this one. What's your hope for this?
Well, my hope is that we'll continue to be able to build community and come together and listen. We did some listening sessions. I mean, I think for the block party, some of it is just fun, and we really want to, have youth come together. I'm envisioning some ways to celebrate youth that are graduating maybe from high school or even other grades. Some of them that we know that are close to us are on their way to college, so we want to do that kind of celebration. But my hope in general is that not just out of necessity, but that we'll even come together, our community will come together even more and work together and take care of each other, work together, help sustain places like the Richard Kemp Center, because they're so important. It's really important, and we get that feedback all the time for our whole community.
Appreciate you. Christine, I love you. Thank you for coming to the
Me
program.
too.
Thank you for coming to Juxtaposition, Issues Affecting Black Folks Affecting Change.
Gotta
honey.
do it, Mark.
That's what's up. I want to just shout out, Kevin, if you bring that slide up, Raise Up Justice. Raise Up Justice, that's the third Wednesday of every month. And here you'll see some of the objectives. We're really looking towards mutual aid, and because that's how we come together, but also education. We gotta be teaching about this legacy of slavery and its relationship to civil rights. Moreover, how civil rights actually undergird our democracy. So very important. And then we can start talking about all of the movement actions that come into it. I also want to shout out the Equal Protection Constitutional Amendment. We're calling it Shield Vermont. Shield Vermont, that's a component of the Raise Up campaign. I just wanted to remind everybody that's what we're doing there. I want to thank everybody for coming out today for Raise Up, for the Juxtaposition. There's so much more that we could talk about, but I just wanted to thank you for coming out. This has been Juxtaposition, Issues Affecting Black Folks Affecting Change. We are so glad that you joined us. Come on out to also Truth and Justice series. That's on the 4th Tuesday of every month, also at the Richard Kemp Center. That's all we have for you tonight. Thank you for joining. Good evening.
My people with me, together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it.